Hello, everyone. Is there somebody hiding there? No, nobody. Let us start. My name is Olga Mutter. I work in the company's bear market. I'm a project manager, but don't be surprised. I've been at Analyst Days. It's my fifth time at the Analyst Days conference. It's always useful for analysts and system analysts. And today I'm going to be talking about retrospectives. I've done more than 300 in my life. Retrospective is not necessarily a tool used for agile commands. And if you don't have Scrum, Kanban, Agile, it doesn't matter. You can as efficiently use the same instrument in your teams. It is customizable for any types of groups. You can do retrospective purely with analysts as well. That's what we're going to discuss today. What is a retrospective? Generally speaking, it's an event that allows us to find a growth potential in your team. Look back at the problems that you had in the previous period, no matter how long the period, and what you can do in future to work more efficiently, not to repeat the same mistakes, and so on and so forth. I've been talking about the participants. Participants is the group of people which is decided on by the person who does retrospective. Retrospective could be the team leader of your team, manager of the project, lead analysts, and any other participant who decides that, okay, enough is enough. We haven't done it for a long time. We need to discuss things. We have some problems. Let's do it. And periodically, retrospective, if we speak about Agile and Scrum, needs to be done once every 2 weeks. That's the regular sprint time. If you do not use Agile, it's advisable to do once a month because in the month time, usually you accumulate a lot of emotions and many other processes and problems that are bothering you. Of course, if you release this, yesterday we were discussing it with somebody at the welcome party once 3 months. You can do it right after the release, every 3 months, in other words. Then you can vary it depending on what you can want to discuss. Why do we do a retrospective? Why do I do it in teams? When I come to new teams, why do I try to promote this tool? First of all, it's an event that allows us to discuss all problems at this activity. Of course, you can do it at dailies, you can discuss it throughout the day at one to ones, but this is a consolidation where we speak about the same thing. Also, at this event, gave you provide an opportunity to a person that his or her voice is heard, and some kind of decision is going to be made on it. Additionally, you as a manager, you're not just coming and telling people what to do. You're going to do it like this. You're discussing it at the event. You make the joint decision, and not you as a boss or somebody else's boss comes in and says, now we are revising the requirements. No, you explain why, what profit it can deliver. But the retrospective, which is an informed decision that can generate this. Has anybody participated in retrospective? Have you been organizing retrospective yourself? Okay, perfect. Then you can learn or maybe use some of the templates that I'm going to talk about in your subsequent retros. Let's speak about what cannot be a retrospective. When I ask you about retro, everybody says, yes, yes, we do. But in fact, it's not retrospective, but rather discussion of the past mistakes. Sometimes a manager comes in, sometimes they're screaming, not screaming, but they're looking for somebody to blame. Why didn't we do it on time? Why did we test it? Why didn't we take it into consideration? And again, there are a lot of questions why. This is now retrospective. This is some conditional meeting where everybody is handed out assignments that nobody cares about because they have plenty of work on their hands, and you're living this activity with quite negative attitude, and the uh, boss generated orders do not motivate you to do anything about it. It's not retrospective when you just get together in a team. Maybe you have sprints, maybe you have a factual plan. You had a sprint in Jira, you have planned for it, you had 20 tasks, you've done 15 of them. Why? Or simply you have discussed what has been done, what hasn't been done. This is no retrospective. I call it plan fact. You are focusing on the assignments, you're not focusing on the team. You don't have a story of engagement of people into retrospective. There are no generations of ideas. and no looking into the root causes why it happened. You're simply talking about dry metrics, dry size assessments, and you're not trying to reflect on retrospective, and you're skipping a lot of phases, which, for some reason unknown, are considered to be redundant. But now let's talk about what a good retrospective is all about. It consists of such steps. It starts with steps zero, preparation. It is done by the person who is preparing retrospective. And first, this person decides on what kind of retrospective they're going to arrange. It can be a health check. You are selecting the number of parameters, usually it's about 20 of them, and you're assessing the whole team. What is the quality of the code, the engagement level, the understanding of what we are doing, time frame, and many other parameters that you require. And that would be the subject matter of your retrospective. Retrospective dedicated to problems. For instance, the problem is that you didn't make the release 10 times in a row. That's a problem. You have decided to get together and discuss it. Or you have a separate thing. Like analysts can get together and discuss, okay, what is wrong about our terms of reference, user story, FT, or some other documents that we're developing. It's just a retrospective of all analysts, and they have selected a topic of documentation, which is also a good and informative activity. When I do retrospective or help in arranging one for other people, often they come up with questions. What should we prepare for the retrospective activity? Everything starts with the metrics. If you work in Jira, there are a lot of diagrams, flowcharts, and bugs and returns that you can rely on to better understand what was in the past and whether it calls for any changes. Past decisions, many people raise their hand that they've done retrospectives. I'm sure that some decisions have been made in the past. You come to this retrospective and look at whether those decisions have been acted upon, and if yes, how well. Because often we hear a story, then we say, yes, let's write comments for our tasks, why we haven't done it on time. Everybody decided and agreed on that, but nobody's doing that. Next time in the retrospective, nobody even recalled that they have agreed on that. Then why the decision was made in the first place? What kind of benefit it delivered to people? Nobody's discussing it. Naturally, there can be a problem if you have a file where people put everything like a file of emotions. That's what many people are doing. That what really drives me crazy. Although past emotions, people tend to forget them, and you come to a retrospective, generally speaking, everything is okay. But in fact, a week ago, you were driven mad by the fact that the tester returned to you the functional requirements that contained what he was asking about, and then he said that you missed something. It drove you crazy, and you can discuss it at the retrospective. The question is then, what is the best place to organize retrospective? How should it be organized? You can do it online. For that, you have very good service, Nero, or any other service that allows you to work with a team. You can do it in office as well. If you do not have a hybrid version, you can get together in the negotiations room. It's also a very good format when you get live things and write something in the smiley stickers. What are the most frequently asked questions here? What if we have never done retrospective before? It's time to start. You can start with a minimal stage, which can be developed on. I have a large team, 20 people. A frequently asked question. First, it's too bad that you have a whole team made up of 20 people. You need to subdivide it into smaller units. But if it is a fact, you can do a functional retrospective. Nobody's doing the same thing in 20 people. You can subdivide them in groups. How to divide people is to be decided by the team. Okay, we're doing customized development. Doesn't matter. You also have growth points to do something better and faster. It's okay. Some of the people are working remotely. In this way, I suggest an online format to make sure that everybody, including people sitting in the office, will be sitting behind their laptops and doing this like this. It will be easier than everybody was sitting in the negotiations room and other people will be connected to you online. It's hard to arrange these things. Our problems are impossible to solve. Sometimes I heard such a claim. I periodically help other companies to introduce a retrospective instrument. And I came to the office, and guys said it's impossible, it's unsolvable for us. I told them, okay, let us still try to write down what is impossible to solve, and let us try to write down who can potentially help you with that. Guys were saying that the security guys are just telling us no summarily. I say, okay, if they're telling you no, but also no, why not? Will it help you? Yes, it will. Okay, it sounds like a solution. Who is going to go to the security guys? This and this guy. Okay, so they moved out of the dead still. Next, the team thinks it is useless. I've also encountered it in the past. I started to do retrospectives in 2017, and I had developers who said, no, 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 it's not for me. Can I go write the code instead of talking to you? Naturally, it's important when you're just starting doing retrospectives to deliver the guys the information why they need it, especially those people who are attending the retrospective. I, as a manager, okay, you don't have to come, but I'm doing it for you. You are the ones who need this retrospective because you are wasting hours and hours on some unclear things. It will save you this time. Your better emotional status will save you a lot of efforts. And this retrospective is best tool for the manager because we're not slapping blames to and fro at retrospective. We're just looking at what is the experience that we have in the company and how to make sure that we don't repeat same mistakes in the future. If you're working in the customized development or working on a product, you can be involved in different projects. I'm in dozen projects. What should I do? Of course, it's up to you to decide whether you attend all 10 retrospectives or not, but more frequently than not. My principle is that at the project where you spend less than 30% of your time, you will be just a listener at this retrospective. But retrospective implies that everybody's an active user. There shouldn't be no passive listeners there. Then, after the preparation, retrospective has to be put together. What do we start with? We spoke about the first step, but there are other steps involved. And the first step would be the opening. The opening takes about 5% of all the retrospective time. We use it to remind people what retrospective is all about, what we're going to talk about, what kind of problem we're addressing. But most important thing that I understand for myself is that we reconnect people from those projects that they worked 5 minutes ago to the retrospective. For me, it's a great opportunity to understand the emotions of people who came to attend. And later on, I somehow change it and I try to focus their attention on something. Okay, let's look at this. You will have your presentation. You can take snapshots, of course, and share it with somebody. These templates can be used if you have many participants in a team or your team had just gotten together. You need to get to know each other. You start by identifying interesting facts about each other. In case when everybody knows each other very well, and you just need to understand how people, what is the people's attitude to retrospective when you do it for the first time. This template works very well. You ask people to put themselves into some group. Naturally, when you do retrospectives frequently, everybody is either buyer or investigator or explorer. If you have many prisoners, it means that people do not understand the idea of retrospective. And that's a great opportunity for you to dedicate 5 minutes of your time to explain why people don't want to attend the retrospectives. And it's a great method to make people talk, because often people in teams do not talk or say, I'm totally okay. But later on, we find out that they're not okay. Next, if we have to decide on the boundaries of communication, for retrospective, there is a very good template. What is productive and non-productive behavior for us? You start your retrospective with that, and then all of a sudden, at retrospective, everybody is starting to interrupt each other, or start looking at their cells, or start doing something that you and your team consider to be uncomfortable or cringeworthy. So you decide on the rules of the game in the very beginning. You are not yourself who is setting these roles as a retrospective runner, but rather people present at the retrospective. This is also a story when psychologically it's easier for people to work with the decisions that they have made themselves, even if those decisions were conditionally made by some manipulations with the opening of the retrospective. Next, my favorite stage of opening is when somebody, it could be a sticker with a kitten, could be a sticker with a superhero if you don't like kittens, could be a doggy or somebody else, any kind of memes to make it more relaxed and to reconnect them to retrospective goals. You can select whatever you find here. It can be a word, name a word of the past sprint. How can you identify the sprint over the period of time? This way you can understand what is bothering that person. It can be the name of some assignment, some person, or just vacation, meaning the person was on vacation or is looking forward to having a vacation, and it will make everybody laugh. Then you move on to the collection of data. How much does it take? It takes usually 20% of all the retrospective time. If we take, say, 1 hour long retrospective, you can calculate how long it will take. During the data collection, you identify not only the growth points, but strengths of the team. It's a big mistake when the data collection is all about problems only. It's a template where we start discussing only problems that we're experiencing, only negative stuff. And I can tell you right away that nobody would want to attend such a retrospective where people speak only about problems. That is why during the data collection, you identify the strengths of the team, why we're great, what great things we have done during the last sprint, and so on. What else is important here? Additionally, during the data collection, we are not talking only about dry numbers, we speak about feelings as well. I will start with feelings. There is a very good template called Mad, Sad, Glad. What in that past period drove a person mad, made him sad, or made him glad? You see here the glad thing, and the guys who are doing the retrospective for the first time are having a hard time finding anything that made them glad. And later on, people stopped being negative about that and moving a lot of stickers to the glad part. Back to that slide. This is a small health check. The team radar, when you have a number of zones where you need to understand what's going on there. Of course, all this data from the retrospective are collected and stored, and you can do the same thing for the team radar and understand how your planning has improved, coding quality, and other assess parameters. Of course, in the data collection, we just decided what good we have, what bad we have, where we can improve. During the data collection, we are not discussing any ideas how it can be done. No solutions. It's done at the subsequent stage. There is also such a template. It requires a bit more time. I've done it once for company managers during the strategic session. When guys start with an abstract understanding who we are, they draw a boat, what kind of team we are, whether we are a superjet team, outer space team, or if guys draw, say, motorboats from both sides, meaning that constantly they receive decisions from customer manager all the time. And then it's also an instrument like any other one that helps them understand what is stalling things, what kind of risks await us in the future, why we might not meet the deadline here, what else makes us feel good, and what helps us move forward.
We have a special block for data collection and a positive block that allows guys to focus on some positive stuff, not only negative. Data collection might be thematic. For example, we revealed what kind of super team we are, and in the data collection process asked what superpower we need. Of course, there will be some jokes like closing sprint in 1 day, but the guys also suggest other options and variants that helps you understand what is happening with the team. After you collect all this information, we generate ideas. Idea generation takes a lot of time because this is uh, the Period. When you prioritize problems through voting, but after selecting the most important problem, you analyze root causes and consequences, and you do it through a 5 why model to understand why it happened. Not just identifying the problem that we didn't manage to release it because we didn't manage to test it in time, but you need to ask why you didn't test it in time, because etc. Why they came late, why you didn't assess it properly, and you can dig deeper and deeper asking why. If the team is not talkative and you need to get idea from every person, you might use this nice template. You have a problem, 3 4 maximum, trust me, and you have photos and names of people, and when people generate ideas anonymously, they say, I don't know. In this case, it's more difficult for them. It's more challenging because they see that their colleagues share their ideas. They invented something and they invent ideas themselves. There's another template. When you already know that the problem exists, you resolve this problem and you need to push this resolution a bit forward. Uh, the template asks what we do now, what we can do extra, what are the barriers or preventing factors, and how can we eliminate these barriers. Then you go to the next level, the action plan. You tell your guys what follows what. Then they understand it themselves. They need to identify growth or problems, generate ideas, and they get to action plan. The main purpose of this phase is to get not only the list of solutions, like review of requirements, for example, but also you mentioned the responsible person and when this person is doing this, what criteria. We have metrics, again, because you might say this is the list of solutions and nobody takes it, and that's it. You just talk to each other, but nothing changes. If nothing changes in your team, then the team will have frustration. They will say, why we visit these retrospective meetings. And I visit every time this retrospective meeting, I share my ideas, but nothing changes. And if these problems are persistent, people will get frustrated. What can you use? There's an action plan. This is a template for the action plan. Identifying responsible people and the timeline, deadlines. What needs to be done? Who will do this and when this needs to be done? Same applies when you put it into Jira. During next retrospective, you attach the screen or the results. If there are many solutions and it's not clear whether the solutions will be useful or not, people generated a lot of solutions. They understand that they will have to do this, but it's not clear whether it will help or not. There's a simple template: value, complexity. Value versus complexity. It might be 1 to 5 scale or any other scale. And you just decide whether it is valuable for our team, beneficial. Will it resolve our problems? Will it resolve 20% of our problems? And how complex this solution is to implement. If you decided to stop writing long TORs and use user stories, instead, it will be difficult for you to prove to your client why is this change necessary. So then this sticker will be here. Then value or benefit for all who work in our team. Will it be beneficial? Some people will say yes, no, yes will be here, no will be in number 4, and everything in 4 that falls into 4, you don't do this. It's the most difficult and less beneficial. 1 and 2 are priorities. There's a filtering matrix. When you have a number of solutions, you have one problem and several solutions offered by your team. The solutions are contradictory, you are not able to implement it all together, so you identify criteria and requirements like complexity, benefits, number of resources to be pulled, and then each solution is checked against these requirements. Some solutions will get more pluses or positive ticks, and then you implement this. If solutions receive equal scores, then you might try one, then the second one, and during the next retrospective, you decide what solution to leave. And closing of the retrospective, people tend to forget about this phase. We discussed everything, we invented, we suggested ideas, that's it. No, this is not good. We need to understand what was happening during these 1 or 2 hours, whether this retrospective was efficient or not. You need to understand whether proper people attended the retrospective. That's why closing of the retrospective takes the same amount of time as the opening. You collect feedback, you agree upon rules, that you will come back in a month and discuss it again. And you do retrospective of the retrospective, but very quickly. Here is the template for that. You might draw aims. In the middle, you hit the aim. You can change questions and ask different questions. For example, we were talking about what is important. If you have a team of developers and one analyst, developers are talking technical stuff all the time. They're speaking their own language and technical stuff, and you cannot help as an analyst. Or you meet with analysts with one developer who is not involved, and this developer might say, well, this meeting was not interesting or relevant for me. Retrospective is about trust. Retrospective is not a critical meeting. If people are not frank and open, there's no point in such an activity. And those who conduct a retrospective meeting, they need to stimulate trust, even if there are names called, they don't go beyond this room or this meeting. So, some ideas were generated. Maybe your team will think that they were made to do this, but they need to trust that this retrospective is working. And this can be proven only by actions. In order to understand how your team or what your team thinks about the retrospective, you might talk about the format. There was a poo here, pictogram of poo, but they asked me to replace it with a sad face. So using this template about what prevented us from achieving success during the meeting. For example, people were making phone calls and distracted. Timing is important. That you fit into 1 hour because people take care of their time. Some people Might say, let's meet face to face next time, or let's dedicate more time for discussions. And well, it's not a fact that you take this and implement this, you just get the feedback. Feedback might be useful and correct, and the feedback might not be usable because you cannot do retrospective for 4 hours, it's too long. And acknowledgements, people might say thanks to each other during the meeting, or people put down why we are a great team, or you thank the person you want to thank, because people you work with, they want to receive positive feedback. They want these acknowledgments. If someone helped you recently, please mention this during retrospective. It would be very good for the person. I have a checklist of effective retrospective. You will have it as well. It's important not to miss the first phase, the preparation. Who is there? How you prepare for the retrospective? This, that. You think about how it needs to be organized. You collect information, and that's it. Don't shift phases and mix them up. Follow it. Follow the timing. If you say that retro is 40 minutes, then you fit into 40 minutes. If it's 1.5 hour, be accurate, 1.5 hour. Observe regularity, like every 2 weeks, every month, every quarter. It should be regular, and people should clearly understand when this event is going to take place. Involvement. People should not be just listeners there. If people didn't work on the project, if it's an analyst's retrospective and you call developers to this meeting, think about that. Why this person is needed? He shouldn't be just listening, at the meeting. And the focus should be on solutions rather than scapegoats or those to be blamed. The results of the retrospective should be documented. It should be a single page with all the results of retrospectives. You take one action item and sprint the decisions that you made, you need to implement it. I made screens from Confluence. I attach it before opening the retrospective, and I check where we are. And people understand that we are going to talk about this or that during the retrospective. Even if people didn't do anything for 2 weeks before the retrospective, this person will start doing something or writing a document. Please don't invent tasks for the sake of tasks. I know a lot of retrospectives when they invent a lot of solutions or tasks that are not needed. It's not a problem if you don't make solutions that tomorrow we change our user story. No, there might be small changes. You discuss problems and difficulties during the retrospective, and that's it. It's not a problem if you don't have any big solutions. And do retrospective meetings. If you don't do this and all the 5 steps seem difficult, no, that's not the case. You can do it in 1 hour. And I introduced retrospective meeting practice in companies that heard nothing about agile, etc. And they do see value in that. If you have retro now, add some more phases, opening, for example, and gradually you add more and more. Useful links. You might get ideas about the templates. You can also use the QR code to get templates that I showed you on the screen. It's my Telegram. We'll do the retro of the conference in Bar Camp. It will be 1640. If you want to be present at this retrospective, please, you're welcome. I hope we'll do it in 30-40 minutes. Thank you.